A viral and recently trending dating sim game had just come out. The Ladies Love Love Project, where the main character is a 17-year-old peasant girl who is revealed to be a duke's long-lost daughter. As she adapts to her new luxurious life in the ducal family, she faces various challenges, events, scenarios, and encounters. There are several male leads, each with unique charms, personalities, and skills. And the heroine can pursue friendships or romantic relationships with them and even gain their confession of love. But she must watch out for the Duke's fake daughter, the villainess with ulterior motives that had stolen her place for the 6 years she's been missing, and now schemes to get rid of her once and for all. The main character must defeat her fake sister whilst avoiding her villainous plots and regain her lost fame and wealth while finding her one and true love. This is the rundown of the game. But this story is very different from that one. We're first introduced to our nameless heroine after being driven away from her adoptive family, neglected by her cold stepfather, and bullied by her stepbrothers. She decides enough is enough and chooses to leave this horrible household and reside independently. Finally, having gained freedom and comfort from her daily struggles, she managed to obtain a bit of happiness. Unfortunately, that didn't last long, and soon she had to face an even bigger challenge. Opening her eyes, she finds herself in a luxurious room in front of an unfamiliar man, confused and unable to speak. 3 dialogue options appear in front of her. While she's dazed and questions her current situation, the elegant, dark-haired stranger demands an answer. Overwhelmed and feeling the heavy atmosphere, she instinctively selects the 3rd dialogue option and is shocked to find out that she speaks automatically. Unimpressed, the man tells her to continue, making another dialogue selection pop up. Although she does not know the context of her situation or what she did wrong, she quickly picks the first option and apologizes for her mistake. The stranger is indifferent to her words and says this isn't something that can end with an apology, otherwise they wouldn't be standing in front of each other. He then proclaims that from this day onward, she'll be on probation under house arrest. Not only is she banned from attending events, but she's also forbidden from leaving her room. He says to think of what she did wrong and repent. As she silently questions what she's done to deserve this, the cold man continues. He calls her by her name, Penelope Eckart, and says that, for the time being, she can no longer call herself Eckart. Incredulous, she can only stare in shock and confusion as she doesn't recall her name being Penelope. She glances above the man's head and sees a favorability percentage bar currently standing at a bitter 0%. The annoyed man questions why she's avoiding his gaze and not taking the matter seriously, saying that the rumors of her going mad must be true. He then turns and sternly walks away. Whilst still in disbelief, Penelope sees a handsome pink-haired man standing at the door, laughing and mocking her situation, saying she deserves it. She looks above his head only to see another favorability bar, only this time at a shocking negative 10%. He then also walks away while slamming the door shut. Penelope's mind is jumbled up. She can't comprehend what happened and believes she's in a dream as she feels her face and discovers her violet hair. She realizes that the person she's touching isn't her. She then remembers a conversation with her friends, asking each other if they tried out the new game everyone's playing. One of her friends says she did, but quit because she hated one of the characters so much. Another asks which one, and she replies the fake heroine, Penelope Eckart. Our heroine is shocked to realize that she somehow became that Penelope. The game setting was incredibly romantic, especially for a girl. As the illegitimate child of the Duke, the main character could be considered the Cinderella of the story. We now get a flashback of our heroine. After her mother passed away, she was adopted by a man with another 2 older children, which became her 2 older brothers. Things started spiraling down from there. Her adoptive father neglected her and often ignored her presence. while her two older stepbrothers bully and mistreat her, making her life a living nightmare. She even reasons that living alone or in an orphanage would have been a better option. Presently, 6 years later, after coming of age, becoming an adult, and having worked hard to enter a prestigious university, she manages to convince her adoptive father to move out and be independent for the first time in her life. Still, she berates and condemns him for allowing her two stepbrothers to mentally and physically bully her every day, and even letting them pick this dirty and smelly apartment for her to live in. Nonetheless, she can't help but shout happily after finally escaping that hellish family, even making her neighbors reprimand her for being too loud. Now, with her depressing days over, she can finally have some fun, make a few friends, and find some happiness. One day, while walking to her next class, she overhears some students talking about the new game and asking each other if they managed to complete it. But they exclaim in frustration, saying how difficult the hard mode of the game is, and that it's probably not even possible to win without spending money. Hearing this, she gets curious and asks her friend walking next to her if she knows what game they're talking about. Her friend cheerily tells her it's a new trending game, the Ladies Love Project, and everyone's wild about it. After getting home, she swiftly downloads the game to see what the hype's all about. She notes how childish and cheesy the title is, but remembers how highly her friends spoke of it. She claims that she's not really interested, but reasons that everyone else is talking about it, so she can't be the only one left outside the loop. Noticing the two difficulty settings, normal and hard, she casually picks normal mode, and we can now see the game's opening video. The protagonist of the game is an ordinary girl called Yvonne. She was separated from her family after an accident and has lived as a peasant for the past 6 years. As she returns to the ducal family, a series of exciting events and situations surround her. With male leads, she can raise favorability. If it reaches 100%, she'll receive a love confession and obtain a different ending. Yvonne can also earn fame and wealth by getting rid of the villainous Penelope that plots against her. Our heroine thinks the storyline is pretty simple and generic, but exclaims that the pretty art style is a big plus. But since she has a class in the morning, she'll only play the prologue and then go to sleep. But 3 hours quickly go by, and no sign of sleeping. Indeed, she's become completely obsessed with the game. Thinking the game's story is very similar to her own, plus the illustrations are incredible and the dialogue is really well done. She thinks of Yvonne, that lived in poverty and then returned to the ducal household, similar to how she was brought into a wealthy family by her adoptive father, even down to having 2 older brothers, wary of her sudden appearance. However, she notes that the difference in their treatment was like day and night. She even finds it funny that the 2 brothers are male leads in the game, and she can have fun pacifying them. In the game's normal mode, every character starts with 30% positive favorability, making it very straightforward and fun for players. And she even calls it easy mode. Anyway, after 3 hours of non-stop playing, she managed to complete every ending in normal mode, and the game's system announces she can now purchase the game's hidden ending. But she's horrified at the expensive cost, and just for an ending, no less. Looking closely, she realizes that the hidden ending can be unlocked for free if she clears the hard mode of the game. She notices the time and notes it's pretty late, plus she's got classes tomorrow, so she really should get some sleep. But her craving takes the better of her logic as she underestimates the difficulty of hard mode, and obsessed with finding out the game's secret ending, she starts playing again. Starting the playthrough, she's surprised to see that now the protagonist is none other than Penelope Eckart, the villainess. And the setting is before Yvonne's return, a while later. Frustrated and annoyed, she throws her phone on the floor. Having died countless times already, she whines at the game's extreme difficulty and reflects how just one wrong dialogue choice and a character's favorability drops to 0, even getting killed in the process. She can't believe that every ending leads to death. Our heroine notes how Penelope seemed so evil in the game's normal mode, but looking from her perspective, she didn't even do much wrong. So she's baffled as to why everyone hates her so much. Picking up her phone, she retries the game once again. Initially, she only cared about getting the secret ending, but that doesn't matter to her anymore. She feels sad for this girl that's been put into the villain role with everyone hating her despite not doing anything wrong. She decides she wants to see the pitiful Penelope gain some happiness and earn one of the male lead's love confession. We find out that in the game's normal mode, Yvonne easily raises everyone's affection without even trying. Penelope's situation more closely reminded her of her own. No matter what she did or tried, and for no reason, she was never treated as part of the family and never had anyone to go to when she got bullied at school or at home. Penelope's image and her own can't help but overlap. So with newfound resolve, she kept challenging and resetting the game with a solid determination to get Penelope's happy ending. She even had a fleeting thought of spending money to raise the character's affection quickly. Soon, a long time passed. After restarting and playing the game countless times, the morning had arisen, but the poor girl couldn't reach her desired happy ending. As she stubbornly tries to fight sleep, only one thought is on her mind. She has to keep playing until the young Penelope's ending isn't death anymore. Unfortunately, her body reaches its limit, and soon she passes out from exhaustion. Shortly later, she's awakened by a maid calling out to her. At first, she's momentarily speechless, wondering if the maid is talking to her. But remembering last night's events, she realizes that she's now someone else in a different world, living a different life. She's become the villainess of the game, and we can finally call her Penelope Eckart. We no longer have a nameless heroine, yay! Rising from her bed, she tries to support herself, but as she leans on her arm, a sudden sharp pain assaults her. Grabbing her arm in discomfort, she discovers needle marks on her forearm. Penelope then flinches as the maid calls to her while fidgeting suspiciously. She recognizes her as the same maid character in the game, and realizing the situation, she's outraged at what this maid did to her while she was sleeping. Penelope tries to say something, but is horrified to find out her voice won't come out, and can't help but clench her jaw and stare angrily, while the maid smirks in satisfaction and tells her that she's prepared her bath. Now, in the bathroom, she realizes just how mistreated Penelope was while living at the mansion. Not only does the maid prick her arms every night, but she also only gets a small bowl of cold water to wash her body. Saying she's surprised by the game's detail is an understatement. Still, she doesn't initially recall such events, but thinking back at the game over screen, she remembers these marks on Penelope's arms. But at the time, she didn't think much of it. Knocking on the bathroom door, the maid impatiently tells her that breakfast is ready and asks how much longer until she's done. Penelope can't help but be annoyed at this maid's antics. Still, compared to how she's been treated in her previous family, this is like child's play to her. Quickly finishing her bath, the maid tells her to sit at the table. But Penelope, astonished, can only watch in horror and disgust as she's served moldy and rotten food. She angrily turns to the maid, who again smirks at her, but before she can do anything, a list of dialogue options pops up in front of her. Penelope immediately recognizes the dialogue choices, as she previously had to redo this scene twice while playing the hard mode. Both times she chose the wrong options, leading to a quick death. Sensing that she's now in that game event, she remembers how 2 out of the 3 choices are traps. If she picks option 1 and throws a tantrum, the maid will run and tell the Duke, her eldest brother, aka. The elegant, dark-haired man who put her under house arrest will overhear the conversation and ban her from even drinking water. She'll then starve in her room. On the other hand, if she picks option 2 and she hand-feeds the food to the poor maid, her younger brother will just happen to pass by, and in an attempt to separate them, he'll push Penelope away, making her fall, and in the process, a fork on the floor will poke her in the neck, and she'll go on to see heaven early. Back when she was playing the game, she could easily press reset and try again, or go on a different event path. But now, this is her reality. There's no reset button, and she can't risk her life to find out. So with a heavy heart, Penelope selects the last option. Her hand starts moving by itself, and she feebly starts to eat the sickening food. The maid is stunned by her unexpected action and timidly asks if she's really eating that garbage. Penelope can only shudder in disgust as her body forces her to eat literal trash while hoping that this nightmare can quickly end. As this happens, her younger brother Reynold comes into the room, asking what's going on. We also get a better look at his handsome face. The maid calls out to him in shock, but before she can say another word, he notices Penelope coughing in disgust on the verge of throwing up. Meanwhile, we get a flashback of the past. Before being transported into the game, Penelope had long become accustomed to such poor treatment, regularly having to go days without food or eating off the floor, while enduring bullying from her diabolical stepbrothers and neglect from her father, making it clear to her that she wasn't welcome in the family. All the poor girl could do was curl in a corner, miserable and hungry, trying to make herself as small as possible, hoping she could become invisible so they would leave her alone. Still, Penelope could never understand what she did wrong, or why they hated her so much to treat her like their sworn enemy. Their mom had passed away before she was even born, and she never once insulted or annoyed them. Because of their bullying, she was always weak and sick. After suffering for so long, she managed to escape. But now she's even experiencing her old life in this cursed game. Returning to the present, Reynold approaches her, asking if she's okay. He glances at the table and is shocked to see that she's been served rotten food. He turns to the maid and questions her. The maid tries to come up with an excuse, but before she can finish her sentence, he slams his fist on the table and angrily scolds her, asking how a mere maid dares to treat her master in such a way. The not-so-smug maid is terrified and tries to explain herself, but Reynold won't hear any of it and orders her to leave, saying he'll inform his brother and father, the Duke, about this. He then calls for the head butler to take the maid and orders her imprisonment. The horrified maid screams in panic and apologizes, but she's quickly taken away by the head butler and another maid. Reynold then comforts Penelope while asking if she's okay and questions why she ate that garbage instead of flipping the table and throwing a tantrum like she always does. But Penelope silently thinks that she would have died because of him if she didn't eat. But she doesn't say anything. Plus, she can't even speak without the dialogue options. She notes that this situation was resolved thanks to him, but knows that a single maid can't be the only reason why Penelope's position is this terrible. And she theorizes that every servant feels the same as the maid. And the only reason things progressed as badly as they have is because the members of the ducal family have allowed it to happen and ignored Penelope, including the present Reynold. Reynold then continues, saying that she looks ill and asks if he should call for a doctor to look at her condition. Dialogue options promptly pop up, and she's again anxious about not making a mistake and dying. If she didn't know anything about this world and the characters, she might have fallen for his act. Fortunately, she had already played through this event many times before, so she knows he doesn't mean any of it. With no hesitation, she picks the first option. Telling Reynold not to bother calling a doctor,